Hassan went into the cafe and returned with a bottle of Courvoisier cognac. Leblanc put his bag on the table and picked up the rifle as Hassan got the bottle open. "May Allah forgive me." He raised it to his mouth. At the same moment, the outside door was kicked aside and a brute of a man, bearded, long hair bound by a bandana, slipped in. He was carrying a MAC-10 machine pistol. "Drop it, or I'll drop you," he told Leblanc, who placed the AK-47 on the table at once. "Of course," he said. The man reached for the bottle. "Cognac, eh? Are we celebrating something your old friend Hamid should know about?" He poured some into his mouth. "Good stuff. Seems a shame to keep it all for ourselves. Why don't you let your wife and daughters out of the cellar so they can join the party?" "No, damn you! I will not do it!" Hassan said violently. Hamid raised the Mac and Leblanc cried, "No need for that. I have money, see?" He unzipped the bag, reached into the false bottom, produced a wad of currency and dropped it on the table. $1,000 American. Hamid was mesmerized and reached out to examine the money for himself. "Where did you get this?" "Tehran," Leblanc told him. "And there's more. Just let us go." "Show me," Hamid ordered. Leblanc scrabbled in the bottom of the bag, but instead of pulling out more money, he produced a Russian Makarov fitted with a silencer and shot Hamid between the eyes, fragmenting the back of his skull and hurling him outside into the street through the open door. A dull thud was the only sound. It was darker now, starting to rain on the dead, and Hassan kicked Hamid's body. "Bastard!" he said, picked up the corpse by its long hair and dragged it out to where the rest of the bodies lay. He turned to Leblanc, who had followed, and grabbed him in a huge embrace. "How can I repay you?" "That your wife and daughters are safe from harm is thanks enough. It was fortunate I had the pistol. Normally I wouldn't have such a thing, but it seemed prudent when I started my journey. These are bad times, and more to come, I think." "Then go with a blessing from me," Hassan said. "Now I must join my family." He returned to the cafe and closed the door. When Leblanc checked the yard at the rear, he found the Citroën intact. He found a water tap and washed away the blood that had splashed across his face as Hamid's skull exploded, using a scarf he found in the car, then checked the contents of the bag. A little blood he had missed on his left hand smeared the Iranian passport, and that gave him an idea. What if his Iranian passport, his true identity, turned up on one of the victims in the street, a body so damaged it could not be identified? He got in the Citroën and drove across the square to the mosque. The piles of bodies were truly shocking, and there were many badly damaged faces. As the rain increased, he knelt beside one old man smashed beyond recognition, his white hair soaked in blood. He felt in the man's inside pockets, removed a couple of letters and an identity card, smeared the Iranian passport with the dead man's blood, and put it in the pocket. He said a short prayer, returned to the Citroën, and started on the road toward Homs, passing many refugees and a small group of United Nations observers in their blue helmets. Several hours later, he left the Citroën in Homs and found a taxi driver willing to deliver him to Wadi Khalid on the border with Lebanon, walking through on foot, armed with his Lebanese passport, where he bypassed a crowd of Syrian refugees. The commander of the border post examined his passport and said, "See anything of the troubles in your journey, Doctor?" "I'm afraid so. I passed through Hula, a dreadful sight." "It must be good to be home after such an experience." "Yes, indeed." Ali Leblanc passed through and took one of the waiting taxis. The approach to Beirut an hour later was astonishingly beautiful. The hot sunshine, the vivid blue of the sky and sea, the harbour crowded with ships, the whiteness of the houses jumbled together as they lifted in untidy terraces, climbing the hill of the old quarter together. He left the taxi by the harbour wall and crossed through the open-air cafes, crowded with people of every race and colour and religion, and so very different from what he had come from. He climbed quickly through narrow cobbled alleys, turned into Rue Rivoli, and came to a building several stories high that was painted a vivid blue. Not surprisingly, a sign by the door said Maison Bleue, and he rang the bell. The woman who answered was someone he knew. 65, of mixed blood, she was handsome enough and wore a black silk robe and a white chador, the obligatory headscarf for Muslim women. There was astonishment.